Hello there. Happy Halloween. It is the halfway point of the Houses and Blouses Fantasy Football League, and it is time for a Power Rankings update. At this point, friendly reminder that the top 3 teams in each division are the ones that will make the playoffs. Please pay no attention to the current ESPN predicted playoff rankings. That doesn't matter. You need to be in the top 3 in either the Ferguson or the top 3 in the Cunningham division. Also want to make sure that you know, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. Some of you have seen that mask before, unfortunately. Friendly reminder that the second half of the season does start now. We've just mentioned that. And one thing that we need to take a quick look at is the recap from the first half. The Cunningham division went 15-34 versus the Burkett division. And when I put these together, I made sure that, I did as fair as I could. I'm sure you all read all the emails. Each division had 3 returning playoff teams from the year before, as well as 4 boys and 3 girls in each division. And based upon last year's record, it was nearly, this was by far the best place to do it. And we also made sure that there was the rivalry game still in the division. And I thought it was fair. And then the draft happened, and we realized, I wonder if this is how it was when they were founding the fraternity as well. If John Ferguson Cunningham just did whatever the hell Charles William Burkett wanted him to do. Maybe there was, one founding father, and the other one just kind of did whatever. And in any case, 34-15, the Burketts just steamrolled the Cunninghams. So that's fairly interesting. And that's going to factor into some playoff stuff here, as we're going to see shortly. Everybody has 6 games left plus 1 bye week. Right now, the 2 bye week teams are the Lena Bowl 1 participants, the team that is led by Kurt Ellis. I don't know the name of the team. We mentioned that earlier. As well as the Freckled Furiosas, who, on a side note, had a fantastic wedding reception there. Would have been, yesterday at this point. Thank you. And all of us that were there just had a really good time. It was an awesome time. And we're very happy for you, Dee and Larry. Needless to say, the second half of the season matters a lot more than the first half of the season because now you're playing teams that you are trying to jump ahead of in your division or teams that you want to keep underneath you in your division. So where you're at now obviously matters a lot, but these next 6 games are the ones that truly matter because you need to finish in the top 3, remember, in your division. This week was pretty cool. We also have 2 rivalry games this week. The Reed household is playing each other as well as the Downey household. So we'll see how those 2 games go. Now, doing some research yesterday now, we had a roving reporter as well as myself. I was kind of behind the camera and had a roving reporter, Jesse Downey, who was interviewing some team owners with regards to if they thought that they should be ranked at the top in their respective divisions. And my program here says I can only upload 20 megabytes at a time, and that's going to take way too long. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to put it on the phone. So here's what we got here. Please ignore my finger. Well, let's see what we got. So we didn't quite get to everybody, obviously, but got a good start there. Now, all of those people claim to have the number one team in the rankings, but none of them are going to be correct. And we'll see that shortly. Let's go over to the big board and we'll see where we're at. Okay. Do some turning here. All right. As you can clearly tell, this one's pretty easy. The Dave Oliver has fallen completely off the map. We have 0 wins and 7 losses. For what it's worth, all 7 of their games have been against the other division. So this got drafted pretty well, and there were pretty high hopes for this team at the start of the year. So we'll see what happens. Not too awful concerned about anything here. However, you just don't want to be in last place out of 14 teams. You just don't. We do actually have a tie for 12th. These two teams are both 1 and 6. The expansion team I moved to play in briefs, and the Real Housewives of Lebanon. Again, both this team and this team were playoff teams last year. Things to talk about here. These are both, the cool thing about here is both of these teams beat the same team, and it's actually the Houseboat Fun Nazis. So that's interesting. Both the In Briefs team, there's been some injuries to some key players, and they're relying upon a quarterback that is very unreliable in Brock Osweiler. Same thing here, a lot of injuries here, and this team is relying on Jay Cutler to lead them to the promised land. So both of those reasons, bad quarterback play and lots of injuries, would be the reason why they are currently sitting in 12th. Let's go up to 11th, the 2 and 5 Fear Boners. You expect Cam Newton to really do a lot in fantasy football. And Cam Newton's been a very average player. Honestly, he's the best player on the team. And that's really not saying a lot. Actually, by position, they have the number 3 ranked tight end right now in Delaney Walker. But this is still a very weak lineup top to bottom. However, because they play in that division, they're actually tied for the last playoff spot in that division. At 2 and 5, the Boners and the Freckled Furiosos are actually tied for 3rd place in that division. The Furiosos get the nod at 2 and 5 over the Fear Boners because they're led by Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson, and they have the Denver Broncos defense. So the Freckled Furiosos look pretty good, and the tough part of their schedule clearly is behind them. Look for this orange and gray and white team on a bye week this week to get all rested up to be ready to run rampant in the Ferguson division coming up here. We actually have a really big gap above the Freckled Furiosos because no team in this league out of 14 teams is ranked 3 and 4. So these 5 teams have a lot to get up to even get to 500. But scooching up here now, no team is 3 and 4, but at 4 and 3, we've got a couple teams. We're going to put the Houseboat Fun Nazis here. Now, Tom Brady is leading this team, so you get the idea where this team is going to go. Did they draft well enough to put people with Tom Brady? That's what we're going to figure out. This team made the playoffs last year. Can Tom Brady bring them back there? They also have the Vikings defense, so they have a pretty good chance at doing so. The Vikings D is currently ranked number 1 in fantasy football defensive scoring. Skipping up 1, the Nazis actually play the Hot Snakes this week. And the Hot Snakes go as the Arizona Cardinals go. They have Carson Palmer and I think 2 or 3 more Arizona Cardinals. So as long as the Cardinals are playing well, then the Hot Snakes will be playing well as well. But their actual best player, if you look pound for pound, is Greg Olsen, who's the number 1 ranked tight end in fantasy football. And they also have some guy named Terrell Pryor, who has come out of nowhere to be quite the wide receiver. So the Hot Snakes got a pretty decent shot at this, but they've had a pretty tough schedule coming up. We'll see where they go. The other 4 and 3 team is going to be the Double Clutchers. And it's hard to believe that the leader of a division is going to be ranked number 7 on our power rankings, but they really are. If you take a look at who they've played, if you take a look at their upcoming schedule, these guys look like they're a solid contributor and might even take the top spot and a bye in the playoffs at 4 and 3. Personally, I have concerns with this team all around since Ben Roethlisberger has been injured, and I don't know his timetable to come back. But anytime you're relying on Ben Roethlisberger to do anything for you, other than hand the ball off to Ezekiel Elliott, I'm not sure what else this team can do. But is that division strong enough for someone to come up and take that spot away from the double clutchers? That's up for debate. So all those teams were 4-3. We have a lot of teams at 5-2. However, one of them is going to be tied, is going to be down there here. This would be the number 6 spot. And here's why. They haven't beaten anybody yet. They have 5 victories. The Pigtail Zers have 5 victories. But who are the 5 victories? These 5 teams. These are the 5 teams. Yes, the 5 teams at the bottom are the wins that the Pigtail Zers have. And their 2 losses have come across teams that are above them. So it's an obviously place here for them. They have a huge matchup to see if they're for real, a good measuring stick. They currently are playing this week the number 1 team in our fantasy football rankings for this week. So we'll see if the Pigtail Zers are for real. We have a 3-way tie going to be for 3rd place right now. The UNUs, the Tacos, and whatever other that team is. They all play each other shortly. These 3 teams are going to work themselves out pretty quickly, including this week. The UNUs play the Password is Tacos in the Battle of the Bear Cave. Of note, the Password is Tacos has the number 1 fantasy quarterback to date in Matt Ryan, and they have the number 1 wide receiver to date in Julio Jones, and the number 2 ranked wide receiver in DeMarco Murray. The Password is Tacos will be a tough team to play later on in this year. The Reed's team, UNUs, are full of average to above average players. They don't look like they're anything special, but they seem to get the job done. Sounds a lot like the Cleveland Indians. They have a bunch of average to above average players, and they're just getting hot at the right time. And they've been good all year, and should be taking care of the Cubs. I hope it's tonight. I really do. Nothing I would love more than seeing the Cubs have heartbreak at Wrigley Field. But I think it's going to be Indians in 6. I think they're going to take care of it here in a couple days. So that's the number 3. And then obviously there's a black and white team there. I don't even know their name. I don't know anything about them. So we're not going to talk anything about them because they don't deserve it because they didn't do the draft correctly. Skipping up here to the top 2 teams. We're going to put them both in there together. Who would have thought it? Who would have thought it? I know I wouldn't have. If you take a look at the number 2 team, that is the Potato Skins, led by Patrick Joseph, Nolan IV. Looking at the roster, I'm trying to find how they are the ranked number 2 team. I'm looking for a good player on the Tater Skins lineup. I'm still looking. Let me tell you the names of the players on this team. Blake Bortles, Matt Asiata, Gary Barnage. The best player on this team is Odell Beckham Jr., and he's a crazy person. So I just don't know. I don't know how they're up there. I don't think Patrick knows how they're up there. But they are. They got a 5-2 record, and they have no plans of slowing down. Speaking of no plans of slowing down, though, I don't know what to tell you. Is the league rigged? Well, that's up for you to decide. But I can tell you that the owner of the Sweethearts, ever since they lost to the Fear Boners in week 2, have just completely lit a fire underneath them, and they're playing pretty good ball. I do want to remind you that this happened last year as well, where the AGR Sweethearts came out the gate like their hair is on fire, and they lost like the last 5 games of the year and missed the playoffs. So we're not going to get our hopes up too hard for the Sweethearts of AGR just yet. But for right now, we'll take it. Halfway through the season with a current power rankings of week 1, or current ranking of number 1 with regards to halfway through the year. There's 6 games left and 1 bye week. So obviously you don't have to set your lineups during a bye week. But it's going to be challenging because these next couple weeks, your players that you're relying on are also on bye weeks as well. So let's see who drafted well, and let's see who can make some trades. I would encourage you to make some trades with each other because you're going to need it. With everyone's bye weeks coming up and people getting injured, this is the time of year where you really decide if you're a for real team or for not real team in fantasy football. I think that's it as far as I want to go tonight. Good luck to everyone these next 6 weeks. And again, I would love it if someone would like to be a part of the power rankings coming up here. I would love to have some help with this. Until then, happy Halloween. This is Mike Derringer signing off, and that means you're not.